So, namaste again, and I hope everyone is doing fine. And today, our topic is Ayurveda and its Vedic connection. And myself, Dr. Harsh, I am practicing Ayurveda since last around 15 years in Rishikesh, India, which comes in the Himalayan region. I am feeling thankful and gratitude to all of you and the yoga teacher who has organized this festival, Mr. Bhuvan, and associates who are sitting here with me. I am really thankful and gratitude that you are here to listen and to share, because when we are talking about Ayurveda and its Vedic connection, there might be some connection between these two sciences. How many of you are familiar with the word Ayurveda and Veda? We will try to make this session more interactive. So my question is, are you familiar with the word Ayurveda and Veda? Anyone who want to give the answer? Hello? Okay. So yes, Prashil. Yes.
Hello, I'm halfway through my 200-hour yoga teacher training, so it's something we've touched on, but very lightly. So I'd like to learn more.
Okay. So Rashil, when we talk about Ayurveda and its Vedic connection, we have to understand that whenever we are having these workshops and these lectures, I used to ask a very simple question: why we are here? Why we are here? Not on this platform. I am talking about why we are here on this planet. Any answer which comes to your mind? So, okay. So whenever I am asking this question in a workshop or in a large group of people will give the answer in a different way. Someone will say that I am here just to enjoy the life. I am here to spread the love. I am here to get fulfillment. I am here to enjoy the good food. So the perception about life is individually different according to the experience, how you are experiencing the life. So why this perception or experience occurs, then I remember one of the ancient scholar of Ayurveda, Charak, around 5,000 years back. And he has written a beautiful scripture, Charak Samhita, which is still today. And Charak says that any individual who is living on this planet is bound to happen with three wishes. It may sound a little bit strange to all of you because only three. Even I am sitting here, I may have a million of wishes. But Charak says fundamentally only three. What are these three wishes? Screen share. So I would love to show some visuals about that. Okay. So these three wishes you can visualize on the screen, and these are the beautiful words which has been mentioned by Charak 5,000 years back. Yes, he has told that first wish is pranayashna. Pranayashna means desire to live. Because this is the first wish. Each and every cell of our body, has this desire to live. That's why what happens? Suppose You are crossing a road and suddenly a car is coming. What you will do? You will run. Why you are running? Because there is unconsciously there is deep desire that I want to live. And that is very important. Charak says that prana ashna is deeply embedded in each and every individual human being. The second, once I am living here on this planet, the second comes, which Charak has mentioned in classical literature, is dhan ashna. Dhan means literally, we can say it's money, it's pleasure, it is fulfillment. It is because what happens if I am living, I want to feel fulfillment in my life. What my mind is seeking? My mind is seeking for happiness, for joy, for bliss. Everyone is searching for it. The only thing is that this desire we want to accomplish in the outer world. And that's why some people like job, some people like relationship, whatever you want to earn in the outer world, in any sense, that is dhan ashna, because that will give us a bit fulfillment. But this is practically true if you find in most of the, like I will say 99% cases, most of the person, whatever we are trying to achieve something in the outer world, we are never fulfilled. And when we are never fulfilled, we try to find something which is deeply inherent within us, and we want to know the truth of life. Then it comes to third desire, known as Parlok Ashna. Parlok is a Sanskrit word, and when I say Parlok, the word, to which planet I belong to. I want to know, because sometimes I feel I don't belong to this planet. So I want to know the mystery of life. I want to know the depth. I want to know the depth of my life. I want to know the secret of my life. I want to know the mystery of life. I want to know how I can get fulfillment this life. And that is three desires, which has been mentioned by Charak 5,000 years back. And Charak says there is no problem if you are on this planet and you want to fulfill these wishes. There is no problem, because it's natural, and will give the complete sense of life once you are fulfilling these wishes. But when it comes to fulfillment, and the question comes that how to achieve or how to prepare yourself for these wishes, then you must be aware about, people say that if you are living a Vedic lifestyle, if you are living the things which has been mentioned in the Veda, which are the ancient scriptures, and I think most in the world record, if you see that Vedas are the most ancient scripture, and there are 4 Vedas. Just for general introduction, there are 4 Vedas, and first Veda, which is the oldest book, Rig Veda, it is talking about cosmic sound. The Om sound comes from there, the cosmic sound, the essential mantras, which has been mentioned in Rig Veda. The second Veda, which has been Yajur Veda, it talks about rituals, different healing rituals, and fire ceremony, and that sort of thing has been mentioned in Yajur Veda. The Sama Veda is the sound of mind, because it is more about music, musical mantras has been, and chanting has been mentioned in Sama Veda. So we can say it is a cosmic sound of mind healing. And the last one is Atharveda, which a lot of description has been mentioned in Atharveda about healing plants, mantras, rituals, and everything. And that's why Ayurveda is known as Sabveda of Atharveda. And sometimes it is very hard to understand the Veda because if you ask a person who is a scholar in Veda and who is very like knowledgeable and who has a lot of experience about Veda, and you are talking to him and you ask him that, sir, I want to learn Veda. And maybe this scholar will say that one life is not enough to study Veda, even the single Veda. If because there are hymns and a lot of hymns has been mentioned, and so if you ask this scholar, how can I can apply this Vedic knowledge in my daily life, in my day-to-day routine, or in my contemporary world? So this Vedic scholar will reply, oh, it's very easy, it's very simple. Do only 4 things, and if you are doing these 4 things, you are basically living a Ayurvedic or Vedic lifestyle. So what are these 4 things? So the first thing which has been mentioned in Veda is dharma. It's a beautiful word, and sometimes people pronounce it like religion, but no. Dharma in Ayurvedic perspective is righteous duty, because once you are here in this world, there are certain skills or the capabilities or qualities or the virtues has been given or you have attained with your knowledge, with your experience. Now you are following a dharma, so the righteous duty. But it seems to be very simple when I use the word righteous duty, because every one of us is performing the duty. Like I'm an Ayurvedic healer, so I am doing my righteous duty when a patient is coming to be healed, and it is my righteous duty. And somebody is a CEO in a company, and he's performing his job, so he seems to be like he's doing dharma. But is it really dharma or not? So Veda is simple yet complicated sometimes to apply a condition for the dharma. And what is that? Righteous duty without self, without ego, without I am doing. And that's the problem of the humankind today. If you look at this mankind, why we are getting the disease, and I remember one of the ancient scripture, Ashtanga Hridaya, where the Vagbhat is talking about that I bow down to the Lord of Ayurveda, the Dhanvantari, who can take away all the stress, all the ego, and we can know our true nature, we can know our true self, and we can perform our dharma and righteous duty. When we are performing this righteous duty without self, there is a sense of easiness, there is a sense of selflessness, there is a sense of blissfulness, or there is a sense of happiness. So dharma means the righteous duty without self or ego. The second thing comes whenever you are performing dharma. So Veda talks about that the second consequence, what will happen is the artha. Artha, people think it is prosperity, but the real meaning is exchange. There is a law of action and reaction. Whenever you are performing the action, there will be a reaction. So whenever you are performing the dharma, what will happen? the righteous duty, there must be something which will come in exchange. It can be money, it can be prosperity, it can be popularity, it can be success, it can be relationship, it can be anything. Like for a good understanding, the Ayurvedic doctors, if you go only 100 years back, were not like me, having the meeting on this Apple laptop. So they used to live in the nature, most probably in the forest, and they used to bring these herbs. They used to prepare these herbs, and some village peoples are coming, and he used to offer these herbs to these people. Some people are coming with money, so he used to take the money. Some people are very poor; they are not coming with money; they are coming with food. He used to take the food. Some people are coming empty-handed. Still, he is treating them. And suppose the person is getting healed, he will say, "Okay, go to that Vaidya or that Ayurvedic physician who is living there." So he was getting popularity even. So all these things, whatever is coming in exchange, that is artha. Artha. Yeah. So this is the second consequence, the artha. What happens when you are having this exchange? It is the natural desire that if we are having this exchange, the third thing comes the kama. Kama means like fulfilling desires. But everyone is having so many desires. Everyone wants to be the president of US. Not possible. If I am having this desire to be the president of US, not possible. So fulfilling, we will correct it, appropriate desire. But the question comes that if we are talking about appropriate desires and the inappropriate desire, what is appropriate desire? What is inappropriate desire? For that, my professor used to say a simple joke. And I really love it, because if you will look at this practically, this joke makes sense. And the joke is like this, that one person, we will understand it later on, like he was a very thin, tall, thin, short person, and he was a Vata person. We will understand if what is Vata. But he was very thin and short, and his wife was Pitta Kapha, an angry and fat woman. So what happened? One day he was drunk, and he was there in the house, and his wife was running after him that, rascal, every day you are coming like, drunk, and today I will kill you. And this guy was running, and he found a little cot, and he got inside. His wife was not able to come inside, and he was just shouting from outside, "Come out." And this guy lay down there and told, "This is my house. I am the boss of this house. I have the liberty to lie down as I wish." So most of the wish, if you look at this, they are like this. Compulsive desire. When you say that I am smoking, and you say that I am feeling freedom, it is a compulsive desire which we have created a very narrow area for the freedom. So that is, we have to find out that this desire is appropriate or inappropriate. Ayurveda talks about a lot, because if the desire is running you, it is for sure inappropriate. But if you are running the desire, that is appropriate. So, and Vedic knowledge is not just about, people think that if you are learning Veda, you have to go in the mountains and meditate. No. The Vedic knowledge is a very practical knowledge, and it talks about that how we can live peacefully in a very productive way in this contemporary world. So fulfilling appropriate wishes. And The fourth thing on the Vedic lifestyle talks about is moksha or the liberation. So the question comes like, I have to die to get the moksha or the liberation? No. Or may I live a moksha life? What is moksha life? Once I know my true self and I know my body, I know my mind, I know my uh, this true self, I consciously I am living a life of moksha because in that condition the desires will not be able to drive me. I will be conscious, I will be uh, able to take the right decision at the right time, and no, nothing from the outer world can distract or can create a problem in my peacefulness. So, if you are doing these four things, the dharma, the righteous duty, the artha, the exchange, the kama of fulfilling appropriate wishes, and the consequences will be the moksha life. So you are living the life which is very ease life, and you are fulfilling these three wishes. So if you look at these three wishes, the prana ashna, Dhan Ashna and the Parlok Ashna, they are very much interconnected with this Dharma, Artha, Kama, and the Moksha because Pranashna is Dharma. I want to perform the righteous duty when I'm living. And the Dhan Ashna is Artha and the Kama, nothing else. And Parlok Ashna is Moksha because I want to know my true selves. And that's why we used to say that this Ayurveda is very much connected with this Vedic science, and that's why it is a Sabal Veda also. And now the question comes that suppose I want to perform these four efforts which has been mentioned in the Vedic lifestyle. What I can do? What should be the first step? What is needed if I want to fulfill my wishes? If I want to perform these four efforts, what should be the first condition? Any one of you, what should be the first condition? What will you like? Any of you? Okay, so so the first thing which should be there is obviously health. If I am healthy, if I feel healthy from my body, from my mind, then I can perform all the duties. Otherwise, if I am having a little headache or fever, and you talk about spirituality, or you talk about any yoga, or you talk about any awareness, you will say, no, first thing I want to get rid of my this fever or headache or whatever. So the question comes, what is health? And the general perspective about health is that absence of disease is health, but not true because again there is a great famous surgeon 5,000 years back, Shushruta, who has given a beautiful definition of health in Shushruta Samhita, an ancient scripture, where he talks about what are the terms and conditions that one must fulfill to be healthy. And the beauty of this definition is that once you understand these terms and conditions, you can understand the very basic principles of Ayurveda together. So let us have a look on this definition of health. So the most beautiful book is to read is the book of our life, and life is having three components. Before going to the definition of health, the definition of life according to Ayurveda is that when your body, mind, and consciousness combines together, in a progressive way, in a movement, then it is known as life. And life has certain qualities, like it is always changeable, it always move on, it always has a certain movement in itself. So the combination of this body, mind, and the consciousness is known as life. And if you look at this life according to body, mind, and consciousness, and we go to the definition of health, Shushu says that there are 5 terms and conditions to be healthy. And these terms and conditions we will take one by one. So first is sama dosha, or balanced doshas, or subtle energies. Any one of you are familiar with the word dosha? Are you familiar with the word vata, pitta, kapha?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. So these are the 3 energies we have to understand: the vata, pitta, and kapha. And basically they are derived from 5 elements, because according to Ayurveda, everything in the universe is 5 elemental. And what are these 5 elements? Anyone can recognize them? Space, air, fire, water, and earth. So according to Ayurvedic principles, these 5 elements are the basis of the universe. We can say these are the basic building blocks of the universe. Nothing can persist without the 5 elements. Whether it is our body, whether it is our mind, whether this mountain, river, table, or a house, everything is made up of 5 elements. And what happens when these 5 elements intermingles within our body? The coordinated interaction of these elements within our body constitute 3 doshas, or subtle energies known as vata, pitta, and kapha, which is responsible for all physiological and psychological activities within our body or even in the mind. So the first term and condition which Shushruta has put is sama dosha, and this is the beauty of Ayurveda, that everyone is unique, and that concept in Ayurveda is known as Prakriti. Prakriti means your own unique nature. According to Ayurveda, everyone is unique, and you will find that even the identical twins will have some difference in their psychology, in their might be body. So nature has not created anything duplicate. Everyone, everything is unique in the nature. And that uniqueness in Ayurveda is known as Prakriti. Prakriti means your unique nature. And when you go to some Ayurvedic physician or Ayurvedic scholar, he can decide what sort of Prakriti are you having, what sort of elements you are having in excess. So if you are having like air element in excess, then your certain type of Prakriti is there. If you are having fire element more, then you are having certain type of Prakriti. If you are having earth element more, then you are having certain type of Prakriti. And once you understand this, that okay, I am this type of person, you will recognize yourself in a broad way, because that will help you to bring you in a flow. Because most of the time, what is happening, the frictions are happening because if I don't know my nature, my diet, my lifestyle, my yogic practices, my meditation, my relationship, my job, everything, if it is not according to your unique nature or unique Prakriti, according to your doshas or according to your subtle energies, you will find a lot of friction is happening. And that's why if a vata person, suppose the person who is having more air element, and he is doing like a long job, stressful job, the vata, the air element, will get aggravated and he can feel fear, anxiety, stress, insecurity, and that sort of thing, even like lack of sleep. Same way, if a pitta person is eating a lot of oily and spicy meal without knowing his unique nature, it will aggravate the fire element in his body, and he can feel anger, irritable, jealousy, impatient, criticism, ego. If a kapha person is having a sedentary lifestyle without knowing his unique nature, and he's eating a lot of sweet things like rice, potatoes, cakes, butter, and that sort of thing, and living a sedentary lifestyle without activity, it can aggravate his earth energy or the kapha dosha, and that can cause depression, obesity, or lack of motivation, and that sort of thing. So the first step in Ayurveda to be healthy, Shushruta has told, a person must have the balanced subtle energies according to the constitution of the individual. The constitution, generally, we can divide it into 7 types. 7 type is like Vata, which is air element, Pitta, which is fire element, Kapha, which is earth element, Vata Pitta, Pitta Kapha, Kapha Vata, or in equal Vata Pitta Kapha. So there are 7 possibilities of balancing the doshas, and Ayurveda can recommend that this certain type of food, this certain type of herbs, certain type of cleansing methods can be good for you. So this is the first thing, that we have to understand our unique nature to be healthy, and we have to understand the concept of the doshas. Because this session is a little short, so we are not going to the deep details of the doshas, but here we can understand that if we are having the balance of these subtle energies, we can bring a perfect harmony between our system, between our physical body, mental body, energy body. If the friction is not there, the person will feel smoothness, joy, and easiness in the life. Second thing Shushruta is talking about, some Agni, because this is the fire which gives us life. So when we are talking about fire, Ayurveda recognizes that there are 13 types of fire, but here we will focus mostly on one fire known as Jathar Agni. Jathar means the stomach, Agni means the fire. So when you are having a meal or when you are eating something, the fire which is burning the food inside us, that is known as Jathar Agni, or the fire of the stomach. Ayurveda says that fire always should be balanced, because what happens naturally, you will find according to the constitution, the fire might be different. Like it can be Vishamagni, it can be irregular digestive fire. These persons will have like more bloating, gas, constipation, and that sort of thing, because sometimes they feel so much hungry, sometimes they forgot to eat, and this fire is not balanced. Second fire is Tikshagni, which is the sharp digestive fire, which is being found in Pitta person who is having more fire element within themselves. And what happens? These persons are eating a lot, but no, it is not getting digested properly, and they can have this acidity, burning sensation, autoimmune disease due to that. The third fire, which is found in earthy person or the kapha person, is Mandagni, which is like dull digestive fire. And this dull digestive fire can cause a lot of metabolic disorders, unnecessary growth in the body, or like vomiting sensation, and that sort of thing. So the idea of this digestive fire, and that's why if you are visiting some Ayurvedic physician, and suppose 3 persons are there, so the physician will say that, you have to take moderate spices. Why this Ayurvedic physician is telling that moderate spices? Might be the person is a Vata person, and moderate spices will balance the digestive fire of this person. And the another person who is coming there, the physician is telling to him that, oh, spices are poison for you. Why? Because the person might be like pitta person or the fiery person, and if he's putting the fire or the spices in the form of fire, that will cause the imbalance of. So he's trying to create a balance of the digestive fire by reducing or by eliminating the spices from the diet. Same way, like the another person who is a little fat and he's coming to this Ayurvedic physician, and this person, the Ayurvedic physician, is telling him, you must eat a lot of spicy things. Why? Because the person might be, like Mandagni or the dull digestive fire. Now he's trying to put more fire inside the system so that this person can be awakened. So the idea is we have to create a balance of digestive fire by diet, by lifestyle, by practices. That doesn't matter, but we have to create this balanced Agni, because most of the diseases are being created by this imbalanced digestive fire. It is a very simple law. If you are preparing food and suppose you put the fire very weak, the food is not going to cook. It will take so much time and the food will not be so delicious maybe. So same way, Ayurveda recognizes the stomach is like a pot, and when the food is coming here in appropriate time, it must be digested well. If it is not getting digested well, it means the waste, the toxins in form of ama. The word is ama. Ama means like residual food particles which are getting fermented, not visible, but they can block the microchannels of the body. And most of the diseases, if this microchannels are blocked, so it can create certain problems. If it goes to the joints, we say or arthritis or gout or certain problems. If it goes to the lungs, we say asthma. If it goes to the mind, we say depression or lack of sleep. So most of the diseases are being caused by this imbalanced digestive fire. So second thing Shushruta has mentioned, that we have to create the balance of this fire also. The third thing which Shushruta has mentioned is Samadhatu. It's a beautiful thing that balanced bodily tissues according to constitution. And nowadays you see that most of the people, but they want to make the shape and they can do anything for that. But Ayurveda recognizes that, okay, if you are a Vata person, if you are a little thin and little less weight, there is no problem. If your physiology is good, then it's okay. If you are a Pitta person, your your physique might be middle. If you are a Kapha person, you can be a little bit heavy, and that is okay. There is no problem, because you are having the balanced bodily tissues according to the constitution. And fourth thing, which Shushruta has mentioned to be healthy, is mal kriyaha, means proper elimination of toxins or the waste products. This is very important, because if the waste products are not getting eliminated, again they will cause toxins and they will cause so many problems. And kriya means like the harmony between your all physiological activities, whatever you are doing. If I'm eating the food and my digestive system is working there, but my nervous system is somewhere else, or I'm doing certain work and there is no harmony between this respiration or digestive system and the nervous system, that will also cause the problem. And it is interesting, if you go to the ancient time, people used to do a lot of work and they were sweating. Now we have all AC. So we have stopped the elimination of the toxins. And after that, if you will see around 100 years, a lot of lifestyle disorders are coming. The blood pressure is coming, the diabetes is coming, because there is no proper elimination of the toxins. And the fifth thing which I love most, which Shushruta is talking about, is prasanna. Prasanna means a feeling of happiness or joyfulness with your body, with your mind, and with your sense organs. And what is prasanna? It's a beautiful word, I will say, because my professor always used to say it's a goddess within you, which is dancing in joy or in bliss without any reason. This is very important because every one of us is having this Devi, this goddess within us, which is dancing in joy. And Ayurveda helps, or the Veda and the Yoga, all these healing principles helps to find this Prasanna, this Devi within ourselves, which is always dancing. And the purpose of Ayurveda is that we have to find this Devi within ourselves. So this is a little concept how Ayurveda and Vedic connection is there. Now we are having around 10-15 minutes. So if you have some questions, we can have some questions, please. Any questions, please? So I think I was talking about this Ayurveda and everybody is getting it. I hope you understand the basic concept which has been mentioned in Ayurveda. And what is the benefit of this applying these simple principles of Ayurveda in our day-to-day life is establishing in a state of flow and frequent peak intelligence moments without any external task in the state of integrative intelligence. So what is integrative intelligence, or what is this is spontaneous and innate, because once you understand your doshas, your basic unique nature, then what happens? You get flow because you are working with the elements within you, which is giving you the direction. And you will find that you are doing maybe 12 hours, 14 hours work, still you are not tired because the dosha is giving you that support. And generally, one of the dosha will make you like on peak, but the another two doshas will support for that peak. Suppose you are a Vata person, you will be very quick, creative, imaginative, and this with this imagination, with this creativity, you can bring something new to the world. If you are a Pitta person, you can be very good in management, you can be a very good businessman, or you can be a very good seeker. So what will happen? The Vata will give you that desire to know or desire to perform, and the Kapha will give you that support. And same way, if you are a Kapha person, then you can be very compassionate, you can be very loving, you can care the people, you can make very good friends, and people can share the things to you. So once we understand these simple principles of Ayurvedic and Vedic lifestyle, we can bring this pure intelligence, integrative intelligence with a peak of health, and we can find this goddess within ourselves, that outer situations or outer imbalances, whatever is going around us, will not create any problem in our being or in our healthy state. And I found this example in my clinical practice. I remember that one lady from Australia, she came to my clinic, and I was a new doctor at that time. I started my practice, and this lady, when I look at her, so general ambience of this lady was so healthy. She was smiling, and she seems to be perfectly healthy. And I have taken this pulse, and what I found that the pulse was not correct, because all the three subtle energies, the Vata, Pitta, Kapha, was hodgepodge. You understand, like hodgepodge, when the traffic, something is going here, something is going there. And honestly, I was not able to make a diagnosis for her, because this type of pulse or the nadi is known as Sannipathic nadi in Ayurveda. What is Sannipathic nadi? When all the three doshas are in imbalance and there is no harmony, there is no balance of the doshas. And at that moment, I was really confused, because I don't want to tell her according to her ambience. She seems to be perfectly healthy. And I started to see here and there. And this lady smiled and told me, "Okay, doctor, I think you got my cancer." So I told her, "Yes, I feel like something is definitely wrong in the system." So, but what she has told me, that definition which has been mentioned 5,000 years back, she has told, doesn't matter for me, because I have established myself into self. I know my true nature. I don't know whether she is alive or not, but one thing I know, she was in a state of prasanna. She find already her state of being happy without any external reason. Even body and the mind was not stopping her growth. And we all have to find this state of prasanna. So I wish and I pray and that all of us, we will make this universe, that every one of us must find this goddess within us who is always dancing in joy without any reason. And with this, I will stop my talk. So if you have some questions, please, again, I'm always ready to answer. Yes, Silvana, the question is, neurological diseases are Vata? Most of them. Yes, most of them, because Vata dosha is more connected with the nervous system according to Ayurveda. And Vata is causing the flow of prana. Flow of the prana is Vata. So there are three energies, the pranas, tejas and ojas, which are connected with Vata, Pitta and the Kapha. So most of the neurological disorder are Vata disorder. Although in some chronic cases, another doshas can be vitiated or imbalances, but like most of the neurological disorder like stress, anxiety, fear, insecurity, and arthritis, lack of sleep, or pain. Vata always causes pain, because Vata causes separation. So all these neurological problems, mostly they are Vata, and most of the time neurological diseases are treated as a Vata balancing system. You are right, Silvana. Thank you.
I
Yes,
have a question.
Namaste. Namaste,
Can you hear
Auntie.
me?
Yes, please.
Namaste. Yes, I have a question. You talk about Ayurveda on the one side, right? And then the Dharma, Artha, Kama on the other side. So Ayurveda puts you in a state of good health, so you can fulfill your Dharma and Artha and so on. Kind of thing. How you right? Now? Yeah, it would seem to me that it's quite easy to become obsessive about Ayurveda in terms of trying to optimize your health and how perfect you want it to be, right? And to find your what you call prasanna, this happiness, right?
Yes.
And I also noticed that most of the rishis of the past and maybe the present too, they are more talking about dharma.
Yes.
In terms of where to fix your mind, in terms of how to live your life. They're not so concerned about the micro details of Vata, Pitta, Kapha, and whatever. So if you do your Dharma, if you fix your mind on that mainly, does that also in reverse? Does that take care of your doshas and sort of put everything into balance in an automatic kind of way?
Yes, and you are right. It is all interconnected because I used to say that Ayurveda is not a science which you have to study. We have to study it because we forget our dharma. Yeah. So the idea Ayurveda is a science of awareness. So once we are aware, once we are conscious about our dharma, what will happen naturally? You will find this intuitive approach that you will start to follow that regimen which has been mentioned in Ayurveda. This is interesting. I tell you how. A lot of people, used to come to my consultation, and what happens, like who are in this meditative path, who are doing this yogic path truly, and what will happen? I will tell them, you must drink copper pot water in the morning. Simple thing I am telling you. And he will say that, oh, doctor, just 1 month before I bought this. I don't know why, but I bought it and I started to drink already. So it is a mini example. I'm not telling that it will happen to everybody, but once you are performing, once you are getting aware, the body and the mind is always present to give you the signal. What happens? The frequency of the signal is being diminished by our cultural and by our, distorted version of mind, we can say like that. It can be like different type of things, multiple things are there. But once the awareness comes, we are connected with our own being, and naturally you will find that it will happen, the state of health. So there is no need to study Vata, Pitta, Kapha, because naturally you will find, okay, I am connected with my body, I am connected with my mind, and naturally it is happening to you. Maybe you will not know the theory of Ayurveda, but obviously you will be in that state that you are following this Vedic and Ayurvedic lifestyle together. That can happen. Yes, you are right.
Okay.
Yes,
So we study Ayurveda because we have fallen away from Dharma.
Yes, we can say like that. Yes, we can say like that. Yes, one perspective can be like this. Yes.
Right. Yes. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Andy. It's a very good question. Thank you for asking. Thank you. So, any other question, please? So, thank you and gratitude to all of you again. And if someone is interested to connect with me, you can connect to Bhuvan. I am always ready to answer later on if it comes to anybody's mind. So Mr. Bhuvan is here and you can connect to him and he can connect to me. I am always ready if I can do anything for you. Thanks and gratitude. God bless you. Thank you. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.